Today, we have a very special guest on the channel that I'm really happy to share with you guys. If you're already familiar with Shawn and his work, make sure to leave some love down below in the comment section. And if you listen to this and you disagree with anything he says or any opinions that are made, make sure to put them in the comments below. I can almost guarantee you that he will read them and respond to them, so long as you articulate yourself properly. With all that said, make sure to give Shawn a warm welcome here to the channel, and I hope to have more guests in the future. Hope you guys enjoy the conversation that we had. All right, so I'm very happy to have with us today Shawn of Reserved Investments on YouTube, which I am very familiar with your work. I have watched a lot of your channel over the past year and a half now, going all the way back into when quarantine started. I know my girlfriend was actually getting sick of seeing you on the big screen. Aww. But it's my understanding, though, that you have over 20 years experience in the collectibles and antique trade, which is more experience than some of my viewers have even been alive. It's almost longer than I've been alive, which is kind of crazy to think about. But that's exactly why I wanted to bring you on today, to share your perspective on the broader collectibles and antique trade. Not antiques in this case, we're going to talk about video games. But you have a lot more experience and a broader perspective than a lot of people that are currently partaking in the market. But before we dive right into that conversation, I just want to give you a chance to go over more who you are, because I know calling you a simple YouTuber doesn't even begin to do justice for you. So go on, just tell who you are, what you actually do in the trade, and your own experiences with video games over the years.
Sure. My name is Shawn Cermak. I live in the great state of Pennsylvania. I run a YouTube channel called Reserved Investments. I've been active in the antiques and collectibles trade in some form since the age of 12. I'm going to state my age, so everybody just calm down. I am not in my 20s. I am not in my 30s. I am 44 years of age. I will be 45 years of age at the end of this year. So I'm closer to 45 than I am to 44.
Yeah,
so
it's like I brought my dad on for the interview today.
Yes. I do get told I look young. I just want to put that out there, because usually when I say I have 30 years of experience in the antiques and collectibles trade, people scratch their head and wonder, were you doing it in utero, or how did this work? Well, I did start at the age of 12. I had some very talented mentors who are all successful across all aspects of the antiques and collectibles trade, all the way from collectibles to high-end pieces of art, to antiquities, and everything in between. So if there was something out there that could be collected, could be sold, could be bought, could be invested in, these guys did it. And that's who showed me the trade from the ground up. So I really got an excellent education, both classically educated and also formally educated in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. On a side note, I am also educated in business, economics, and finance. So pretty much what I do is I am a consultant in the trade. I do write for Antiques and Auction News. If you guys ever check out that publication, they do have a website. They do feature my articles like every month or every 2 weeks on regular rotation. That's pretty much the publication that I do write for right now. I also am a hired consultant in the trade. So if you do need my services, you can go to my YouTube channel, any one of my videos. The video description has my email address, reservedinvestments@gmail.com. You can email me directly and ask for help. I do charge by the hour. My rates are specified. Once you contact me, we will engage in that discussion depending on what you need. Most people just need a simple 1-hour phone call, and usually I can help them in a lot of these markets. Again, I do not have a crystal ball. There's no hocus pocus. I don't tell you if you buy this antique or collectible, you're going to have $1 million in 10 years. It doesn't work that way.
That's the only answer people want, Shawn.
Yeah. Really. What I teach on my channel, though, is the core basics as to how these markets work. There are fundamentals that are missing on hype-driven YouTube, and that's probably what we're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely.
So pretty much the best introduction I can give you guys about me.
And how much have you, you dealt with video games a long time ago, I believe, right?
Correct.
What's your own experience with buying, selling, speculating in the world of video games?
Oh, it was great. Before, I want to say, literally before everything blew up on social media. Back in 1995, when eBay became a thing, it was actually called Auction Web. I started a business called Electro Games, where basically I would be going to flea markets and I would be buying all these pre-Nintendo video games, and also Nintendo and later. But at that particular time, there was a massive speculative bubble forming in Atari, ColecoVision, Intellivision, Vectrex, and I would go around and I would buy up all these games. And I'd flip them on eBay for 10 times as much. And people would come to me and they would say, no, Shawn, you should be holding this stuff. This stuff is going to be worth a fortune in the future. And I used to always tell them, The market doesn't work that way. You're better off taking the short-term flips, taking that profit and putting it into something else, more so traditional assets than that of antiques and collectibles. And a lot of people were getting very mad at me at that time because I was so honest as to the fact that Atari is not going to be the next big thing. And here we are in 2021, we see most Atari games are not worth anywhere near they were worth in the 1990s, even in the early 2000s. Right around 2005 is when the pre-Nintendo bubble popped, where a lot of that stuff was no longer selling for the premiums that they were, because collectors were then getting into Nintendo, Sega, TurboGrafx, Neo Geo, PC Engine. Sega Saturn was really becoming a big thing by 2005 because it was off the market then for about, 9-8 years. So that's
when you were doing your Atari, you weren't even doing sealed back then. Hey, you were just buying complete in box, I would assume.
I had access to sealed product. There was a company called O'Shea Limited that would have like certain Atari games that were selling for like 65 cents, factory sealed. You can do a search on this. They were out of Kansas City, Missouri. I was getting this stuff literally by the bucket load. I mean, I'm just going to say it, pallets of it I was getting a hold of. And even to this day, I have some of these pallets still in storage. That's why when WATA became a thing, I was one of the people that was teaming up with other people. And we're like, what can we do here? We'll send these to get graded and see what they go for. And it just turned out that people in the beginning of this bubble, they started paying a premium for graded Atari games. And we're sitting there scratching our head. There's a website where you can go and get a copy of Spider-Man 1982 Atari 2600 made by Parker Brothers. That's still factory sealed for $35, $39. And you send it to get graded, it comes back a 9.8. You got $9,000 sitting there. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's what the first ones went for. I think it was 9,000. Then the price dropped to $5,000. Now they're down to $1,000, and even that's overpriced for that game.
Yeah, and I think honestly, when the next one comes up, we've seen a little bit of a drought on the 9.8 A++. I wouldn't be surprised to see it bounce now all of a sudden again.
Yeah, it's insane what's happening.
And that's when I do a lot of my market watch stuff on Atari, I always warn that, like, I don't know the populations on Atari. I know they're large for a lot of games, because even back when I first started looking at Atari a little bit, out of Venezuela, you could order a bunch of new inbox Atari. I don't know if that's the same source you were getting stuff from, but it terrifies me nowadays, especially without population reports, which we'll get into later, to try and speculate or even just to collect this Atari WATA stuff. It just feels like you're going to get taken for a ride.
Correct.
Yeah. So anyways, what everyone saw, what everyone's talking about, we had the $1.5 million Mario 64 sale. Now, obviously, you express caution across most of the collector fields as you speculate, invest, watch out for euphoria. So you see the $1.5 million Mario 64 sale. Does this get you excited for the market? Does it get you scared for the market? How would you quickly summarize everything you saw there with the signature auctions?
Terrified. Extremely terrified. I'm going to be very honest. A lot of people are going to get hurt over this, I think, over the long term. I think in the short term, there's money to be made if you're a market manipulator. If you're a market maker, you have this stuff, you want to get it graded, you want to send it to market, you want to hype it. You can do that. We're already seeing this with social media. Now we have Heritage Auctions involved. We have a grading company that's now involved, of course. It kind of reminds me of what was happening in the 1980s in the antiques trade with coins. This is really what started the coin grading bubble in the 1980s. Similar tactics were being employed, and that did not end well. And now we even have it being employed to collectible trading card games. You have Pokemon, Magic. You also have comic books involved. So this is really a mass speculative euphoria. That doesn't mean the market's going to go to zero. I'm not telling anybody that overnight these are going to become like Beanie Babies. My point is, it's too dangerous, though, how quickly they've been run up in price. And all these collecting categories have some realm of speculation to them. Video games right now is one of the worst. And that's where I would, if the person who bought that Super Mario 64 for $1.5 million, if he was a client of mine, I would have told him to never go that high. That is nowhere near worth that amount. And I know a lot of you guys out there that are on the fanboy train that really love graded video games. You guys are going to want to defend this. Be very careful. There is a lack of transparency and ethics in the overall market right now. If it was me and I was truly ecstatic for this market, which, to be fair, I have an emotional attachment to video games.
Of course. That's why most of us are here to some degree.
One of the criticism that's always laid against me is you're pro antique. and you're biased against collectibles. That's not true at all. The problem is I've seen this too many times where a market gets overheated. And this is when a lot of the starry-eyed, unsophisticated investors want to get involved. And that's where it ends bad. Because when this bubble bursts, if you're somebody that can afford to pay $1.5 million for a Super Mario 64, I can tell you right now, you probably have a net worth well over 50 million, if not $100 million or more.
You'd certainly hope so.
If that game drops, 50% in value, you are not going to be hurting. However, if you're somebody that makes $50, $60, $70,000 a year, and you go to the market and you spend $100,000 on one game and you consider it a quote unquote investment, and that market value of that game drops to $50,000, I got news for you. You're going to be hurting because you do not have the money or even the sophistication to be playing in that type of market. And that's what's scary to me. There's a lot of people that I see, well, Shawn, I can borrow money from my 401k. I have a 0% credit card. I can do a home equity loan. I can afford this item. I'm going to invest in it. Now is not the time to be investing in these items if you cannot afford to play in this market.
Yeah, it's you know, when all those headlines blow up and everyone sees that, it's like you said, right? So you have the guy with the $50 million playing with the big games, and they're buying your Zelda's 870K, Mario World 370K, Final Fantasy 200K, right? But this trickle down effect really happens when we see these headlines. And all of a sudden I'm getting bombarded with questions about, okay, well, what DS games might be good? What 3DS games? What about Xbox One, PS4? And it's, you know, you get away from all of the, if you want to believe the sales are all real, you get away from a lot of the fundamental stuff that drives the 1.5 million Mario. And you just start throwing it all aside in hopes of catching momentum, without understanding that, whatever, sure, maybe you have less downside risk if you're only spending $100, right? Okay, but you're hoping for something to happen that just doesn't have the same, you can't capture that magic twice, as I guess what I'm trying to say when people are entering into these more modern gen stuff.
Correct, and there's more of it out there. There's a lot more of it. I mean, the Super Mario 64, you know as well as I do, that's not a rare game, even factory sealed. I mean, I talk to other YouTubers. I'm not going to name names, but I talk to some of the big YouTubers who have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And we communicate. When that sale broke, I mean, there was a lot of confusion where people were even running to me going, Shawn, how did this happen? And it's all market manipulation. That's really what it is. There's very little organic demand that would propel a game like that over the $1 million mark at present time. It's all market hype, manipulation, internet hype, auction house hype, grading company hype. There's very little organic demand in the market right now. And that's what scares me. And I think a lot of the people on the lower end want there to be a lot of organic demand because they're collecting this stuff. They don't have the money to play in this market, but they want their collections to go up in value.
Yeah, for sure.
And I understand that. Like I said, guys, I collect video games too. I have a massive collection. The difference is on this stuff that's rising so quickly, I'm selling into the market. I'm not looking back. Some of you guys are instead investing in reverse. You're coming into the market now with money, claiming that, well, see, now it's a thing. Now it's stable. It's anything but stable at this point.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me. That's why I'm terrified for a lot of the people that are coming into this market that do not understand the basics. Again, I'm not saying you can't make money, but if you're trying to make money over the long term, thinking that some of these high profile games are going to be your meal ticket, that is extremely risky right now. And I would not be going after a lot of the lesser tier stuff, the stuff that's selling for several thousands, because I think even that stuff, when we look at the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, a lot of those games are overvalued right now because a person born in the year 2021, 20 years from now, when they're grown, when they get into college and they want to collect this stuff, if they decide to collect it, are they really going to go after a lesser known Super Nintendo or Nintendo game that's factory sealed? They're not going to care about it. It was a system that they weren't even alive to play. If they want to play those games, they can download them on their new Switch Pro 5 Ultra, whatever we have it.
With OLED, the new one.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly, right? And it's almost like like you said with collecting in reverse, right? The more it goes up in money, there's almost more demand in it because it creates the belief that, okay, if it's already gone up this much, we can double, we can triple from here. Okay, now we're worth 50,000. Well, now there's real money to play with. Now we can get it to 100,000. Whereas when it's cheap and the actual time to invest in it is there, there's no momentum, there's no hype, it's not sexy. You know what I mean? So it's funny that the inverse relationship happens as these asset classes. It's the same with crypto. You know, Bitcoin's way more popular when it's 60K than 20. It's really funny to watch that happen, actually. With the Super Mario 64, even in high grade, I assume you are not a believer that the 9.8 A++ will remain, let's say 20 of them.
No, because VGA has been in existence before WATA, and they've already graded Super Mario 64s that are sealed, that are at that caliber.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, none of them make their population reports easy to find. Let's be realistic here. VGA pulled, I think, their population report. So I am hypocritical of them as well, just like WATA.
Yes.
But I will tell you, there are more copies out there. Anybody that has been in this field for any given time, any of your big YouTubers, any people that have a education in this market knows that this was not a rare game. This was completely hype driven. And what's scary is to the overall news media out there, you know, I'm in the antiques and collectibles trade. So I also write articles on this. So I see the reaction from the average person when they go and look in the Journal of Antiques and Collectibles, Antiques and Auction News, which is what I write for, or any of these other publications like Antique Trader, and they see, oh, video games are the hot new thing. This is great. But you're not looking in at the fundamentals and the dynamics that's making this hot.
Yep. Absolutely. You're just hopping on the money train. That's what it is for a lot of people.
Correct.
I'm sure you saw a few weeks ago now that WATA had a census leak. And with it, we couldn't break down the grades that were on it, right? So all we had was Super Mario 64 and the number of graded copies, but no actual numbers. This was sitting on the website. And I guess you could pull it quickly. I'm not too computer savvy. I guess you could just scrape it off without too much know-how, right? If you know anything about computer science. But even with this data existing, a number, an overall number graded, is that a powerful information tool? Or is that there just isn't enough there to break down?
There isn't enough there. You really need to know what grades those games are graded at. So you would have to have access to all the information.
Okay.
That would give you an idea. Now, obviously, if you come across a game, WATA's only been in existence for roughly 2.5 years right now. Maybe 3.
Yeah, I think it's officially 3. Because I went to that Chicago show back in 2018, but.
Correct. So if you find a game that they've graded and there's like 100, 200 copies, obviously you can assume that's anything but rare because we're just getting started here. I mean, I've talked about this on my channel. There are collectors that I personally know that have a lot of this stuff sitting that is factory sealed where they just don't want to bother with it right now. Well, if they would decide to send this in and start getting it graded, these population reports would fill up nicely. Now, I am not saying, and I want to address this with my critics, a lot of critics will say, well, Shawn, there's going to be some surprises, meaning there are going to be games that we thought maybe weren't as rare that do turn out to be rare. That is true. There's always surprises in population reports when we look at collectibles or antiques. They're still finding surprises in the coin market. Coin market's been going strong since the 1980s. They're still finding surprises in the population reports. So yes, that is true. There will be surprises. But overall, what a population report would do would bring ethics and transparency to this market that is desperately needed because it is so overhyped.
Yeah, exactly. And so in your opinion, right, we don't have pop reports. Who are the big winners in this? Who really?
The market manipulators and the market makers, and of course, WATA Games, of course, any auction company that is right now getting into video games.
Yep.
Any grading company that is thinking of competing with WATA. I know of at least one. CGC made an announcement they're getting into video games. They're going to benefit highly from this because they're probably looking at this. Well, WATA, who is now owned by PSA, we should talk about that. They were bought by PSA, Collectors Universe Holdings. If they don't release population reports for this, do we have to release population reports? What's keeping the market honest? The collectors sure ain't saying anything. I go on these forums too. Now, I don't post because obviously it would be too controversial. If I came on a forum, introduced myself and posted, it would not anybody's favor. So I normally don't post anymore on forums, but I do lurk a little bit. And I can tell you, one of the things that I'm upset with, where are all the fanboys asking for ethics and transparency in the market?
The big issue is a lot of the guys who are at the upper level have no incentive to share pop reports or to share. Now, I'm not saying, right, I'm not saying they're all colluding or manipulating, but a lot of the people, it's protecting their assets if they don't share population information or even higher level information about these items in question. It's easier to sell GTA trilogies than it is to educate people on it.
You're absolutely, that was a great quote. You're absolutely right. I give you 100% credit. No, that was a great quote.
Yeah,
Because I can tell you, if this happened in the coin world, a sophisticated market like coins, if tomorrow NGC, PCGS, who are the two top tier coin grading companies. Now, for those unaware, PSA, Collectors Universe Holdings, owns PCGS. On the other end of the spectrum, NGC is owned by the same company that runs CGC. So they're
okay, I actually didn't realize it was that monopolized already.
So you have two top tier companies. If they were to announce that we're going to pull population reports for coins, I guarantee you some of the brightest minds in coin collecting, numismatics, Jeff Garrett, I don't want to put words in his mouth. Doug Winters, I don't want to put words in his mouth. But I guarantee you they would speak out and they would say, no, this is ethically and morally wrong what you're doing here. We need this for ethics and transparency in the trade. And I can tell you those names that I just mentioned, they're some of the top brightest people in coin collecting who have massive collections worth millions, and they would speak out about this.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying, how come we can't apply that to collectibles? Why are so many of the fanboys taking the side in this equation with the grading companies and saying, well, we don't want this information to get out. We want this thing to be a thing.
Well, they haven't graded enough, Shawn, right? If you give the wrong information, it'll what do they say? It'll give the wrong picture or whatever WATA says.
But
it'll paint the wrong picture.
But it won't. It's only going to scare people away who then realize, holy hell, sorry, I did swear. I know I said I wouldn't. Holy hell, we've graded 18 copies of this game all above 9.4, and we're trying to tout this as a rare game, as a rare collectible. Now, on the flip side, though, I've said this before, this would benefit WATA in a way, because I guarantee you there's some games out there that are going to be truly scarce, that are going to have demand, and they're going to be well known, where people are going to go, oh, well, that guy, Shawn on Reserved Investments, he said there might be more of these. We're looking at the pop reports. It doesn't seem like that's the case. So, yeah, there would be a flip side to this as well, where some of these markets would pop just due to surprises, given the fact that, oh, maybe there isn't a lot of these.
Yep. So that was exactly the argument I made as well with them coming out.
Exactly. So why not just do the right thing, release the pop reports, and then have yourself in at least an ethical sphere where you can say, well, we can't control the market, but here's all the information. Here's all the information that you have to work from. So if a game like this goes from 50,000 to 500,000, we at least told you how many copies were out there as of right now. Now, you are correct. If you would come to me and you'd say, Shawn, you know what? They've only been around for 3 years. Yeah, I would tell somebody, don't put all your bets or all your chips in that one game, because obviously someone sitting out in Oklahoma or Idaho who collects video games, they may have 15 copies of that, not realizing that the market's going hog wire right now. And a lot of people come to me and they say, Shawn, don't people watch their holdings? Wouldn't they know that these markets are going crazy? I can tell you as a consultant in the trade, the answer is no. Some people just love this stuff. They have rooms of it in their house, and they don't realize that, oh, I got to check in and see how my collectible cards or video games or coins or comic books are doing today. They don't think of it like that.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I mean, video games really haven't been thought about like that until the past 2 years. So with you saying that, absolutely, I believe that, right? I never bothered to check my inventory. Why would I? You know, basic ebbs and flows before we started 500Xing every week. But with the pop report, right, as you say, it seems to me if WATA were to just release the numbers and incomplete data, whatever, it at least takes the onus off them of transparency and manipulation to a degree. Where people love to point to them at that and they love to complain about them, you can just easily remedy that by giving the information.
Correct. And another thing they need to do is, and they have gotten a little bit better on this, I do want to give them a little bit of credit, but they need to stay out of the secondary market. They should not be going on Pawn Stars saying, we represent this seller of this item that we just created. That is a major no-no. You know, when that episode aired, my cell phone was going off from people in the antiques and collectibles trade.
Is that when Dennis went on, or is that when the Mario Bros?
That was the first appearance that they went on. I think it was Dennis was in that. Okay. And my phone was going off where people were like, do you believe they just went on national television, didn't even hide any aspect of conflict of interest, mass market manipulation. They just put it all out there. And the Kimmies and the Poindexters are going on forums saluting that this is going to be the next big thing without looking behind the scenes. And that's where it just drove me nuts.
Yep.
And I know that we're in a completely different era. Really, I get it. You guys know, if you guys watch my YouTube channel, you know I am not tech savvy. I just turn the camera on. I don't know anything about making my appearance better or anything. I just film a segment. I don't even edit it, and I upload it to YouTube and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's very impressive you don't edit your segments. I'll give you that. Like, I edit the hell out of mine.
Don't know how. Literally, I'm surprised I even learned how to create a YouTube account. I mean, I use iPhones, iMacs, watch it, the whole 9 yards with Apple because it's so easy to use. It's like
for sure.
It reminds me of a Sierra Online game from the 1980s. You just point and click.
I was going to say, Shawn, do you think I played Sierra 1980s games? Come on.
I did.
So with that then, right? So PSA did purchase, or PSA's parent, Collectors Universe, purchased WATA Games. Obviously, PSA has pop reports with cards and the like. Everyone seems to be really excited that, okay, this means we're going to get the pop reports, right? Right? What do you think that's going to transpire soon?
Because they don't need to. There's no pressure being placed by the overall market. It's people like me who have a whole 7,300 subscribers on my YouTube channel. There are other critics, thank God, out there that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers that are potentially putting pressure on WATA and also the market as a whole. But overall, it's not happening organically from a lot of the core collectors. And that's what's sad. They really want to make this a thing so bad that they're overlooking ethics and transparency in the marketplace.
Well,
and again,
a lot of the, without going too much like conspiracy, whatever, again, right? A lot of the people, because Dennis came up through Nintendo Age, which, correct. I mean, I was on there for the boards where I learned from Dennis, right? Like I knew him as Super NES man. I knew him for 6 to 8 years without actually knowing him. And
I have nothing against him personally or the product and service that they provide. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
The problem is the way that this looks from somebody looking just on the outside in, even if you're educated in antiques and collectibles, even if you're not, even if you're educated in economics, business, and finance, even if you're not. Most people are looking at this market going, oh my God, there's no ethics, no transparency, and very few people are speaking up. So that's my problem. It's nothing against anybody at WATA. It's nothing against the company as a whole. The company as a whole, in my assessment, does a very good job with the product and service they provide.
Absolutely.
What's going on behind the scenes or not going on behind the scenes that should be going on, that is my problem.
Yep, for sure. And I was going to say, just to finish my story quick there, a lot of the highest end collectors are or were, they personally knew Dennis. So it's almost like a personal attachment to WATA themselves, where you're not separating Dennis as the person, the collector, and WATA as the business and all of the ethics. And it gets really murky really quick when it's like if I started a grading company and all of a sudden I was friends with all the most biggest collectors. It's questionable.
Correct.
But,
and that's why I do give him the benefit of doubt. I think his first Pawn Stars appearance was not meant to come across the way it did.
I would take it as well. If someone wanted to bring me on, it's exciting, it's new. How can you say no to that? You'd be an idiot to say no.
Yeah.
I get it, right? It just is what it is. The ripple effects are going to happen no matter what.
I think it's important to note that the market needs more organic demand for this to become a true thing. And that's what I think is lacking. There's a lot of people that are so drawn. Well, Shawn, you know, I love Zelda. I grew up. Let me tell you a story. A lot of people always attack me because they claim that I'm all about the money. And I'm not all about the money. The reason why I do my YouTube channel the way that I do, it's because I look at YouTube as being too hype driven. So I try to counterbalance that with my channel where I don't tell you the top 5 comic books to buy, the top 5 video games to speculate.
Those are easy clicks, Shawn. You need to start doing that.
Yeah, really. I do talk about speculation on my channel. That's no lie because I involve myself in speculation as well. But overall, in 1987, 1988, I remember getting a copy of The Legend of Zelda. It was the gold version, and I loved it. I used to sleep in my bed with the manual. That's how much I was into this game at the age of 12.
That's incredible.
I tell you, there's no one out there that has more of an attachment to The Legend of Zelda than myself, probably. It was probably the first video game, because I came from the Atari era before that. And after that, in between the space between Atari 2600 and the Nintendo Entertainment System, the only other system that I really had, because the market was in a frenzy then, if you remember the 1983 video game crash, was an Apple IIc computer. And I used to love the Bard's Tale games. The original Bard's Tale computer games were excellent. Well, when I got The Legend of Zelda by Nintendo, that gold cartridge, I was in love with it because it was a console game like no other. It was so immersive. It was nothing that Atari could ever offer. And I have a great attachment for that. And where I'm going with this, I want Zelda, I want video games to be a thing too. But me looking at the market where a factory seal copy of Legend of Zelda, even if it is a first print in 9.0, that just sold for $870,000, to me, it's unfathomable how quickly that market went up to that height. And that's where I tell people, you need to control your nostalgia. You need to put away your emotions and just analyze this for what it is. Even if you could afford that game, would you really want to pay $870,000 for a factory sealed game that you can't play, that's encased in plastic, that you're going to have to insure, you're going to have to maintain, and over time, even doing those two things, it's still going to degrade in that holder? You really have to keep a pure perspective on this. And I don't think a lot of people can do that.
So at those, like the highest of the high levels, right? That's money where I'm an armchair quarterback, right? I cannot play in that market, obviously, but it sure is fun to sit here and tell them what they should do. But at that level, who is the end consumer for those products then? Does it just have to keep selling for more until no one wants to take that risk? Or are there people at those levels who are happy to own it for 10, 15 years, and if it goes down, well, they're happy to have it? At those levels of wealth, what do you see happening with collectibles of that nature?
It's pretty much bought for investment at that point. Most of these people, like one of the arguments, and I've seen it all, I have people that come to me that have multi-million dollar net worths that go after very expensive items in the trade. And you know the first thing that they ask me? Shawn, what's the investment potential on this? Is this market really going to exist? So if I put all this money in this antique or collectible in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, am I going to be able to sell it? And at the bare minimum, break even or at least keep up with the cost of inflation? That's the first question I get asked. And that's why you'll see in my comments, somebody who is not well versed will come to me and say, well, what about the person that just wants to own it? There are very few people, even billionaires, that will take a large chunk of money, even to the average person, and just spend it on something stupid to the point where they have no return out of it. Now, I know what you're going to say. People go on vacations, people buy yachts, people buy fancy cars. In the collectibles market is primarily driven by two things: passion and emotional attachment. Status also plays into that, but also financial investment. When you see a billionaire buying $100 million painting, he is not saying, I hope this painting goes to zero. I'm just throwing $100 million at it, and I don't care about the value.
I just like Pollock Jackson, right? Like that's
exactly what he is doing. Is he's saying, look at me. I just bought this painting, and it's in my collection. And if you want it, you're going to have to pay a premium to get it from me because it's one of a kind. That's what that billionaire is doing. He's diversifying assets in that asset class.
Yeah.
Video games, coins, comic books, we're now at these new height levels. It's the same thing.
So it can easily collapse as soon as the idea that it might not appreciate in the next year or two or three, it can drop substantially from those people who no longer want to enter at the high net worth items, really.
Correct. Now, there are certain obviously collectibles that we know that it looks like they're going strong. They're going to end up being established collectibles. They may even become valuable antiques. Like if you look at a copy of Action Comics 1 from 1939, I would agree if you tell me, well, Shawn, that market's more established than it is speculative. I would tell you it is becoming established, the market for pre-1963 comic books, I would tell you. But there's still a lot of speculation in there because the people that are buying those particular comic books, they want them to go up in value. All is what it takes in the antiques and collectibles trade overall is one sale to not reach the high price that that item reached before, and the market could potentially tank.
And has that happened with Actions Comic 1? Like there have been, like it sells for 1, sells for 880?
No, it never dropped in value Action
Interesting.
Comics 1 at present time, since the advent of CGC.
Yeah.
So since we go back to 2000, 2001, when CGC was first formed, third-party grading comic books, if you look at the price of Action Comics 1, it has always gone up exponentially from that particular time frame. That does not mean I consider it to be a good investment. At some point, a correction will hit that market as well. No market can go up exponentially over the long term indefinitely. It's not
Absolutely.
and that's what coin collectors had to learn. You know, if you watch my channel, you know I invest in coins. I love coins. I would never tell a novice to put their money in coins as an investment unless they know the market and understand the risks, because the risks are very great. We saw that in the 1980s when the grading companies came in, when market manipulators came in, when you had Merrill Lynch release the Athena Fund that invested in coins, antiquities, all these artifacts. It was unsustainable. And a lot of people saw it, and we tried to warn it. Well, I didn't. I was only obviously in 12, 13 years old in the 1980s, but other people, my mentors, tried to warn people this is a bubble that is going to pop, and they didn't want to hear it. Well, in the late 1980s, it popped. Speculative bubbles can last for decades or more. This is something that I try to tell people every once in a while. I'll get somebody that comes to me, well, you were wrong. Well, my channel's only 2 years old. Speculative bubbles can last 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, I know with your 2019 videos,
yeah,
some of your oldest videos saying, you know, warnings to would-be speculators in graded video games and stuff. And back then, I think we saw like GoldenEye sell for 20K, which I'm pretty sure that was then sold again for like 70 and is now being touted as 200,000 or 300,000. So you were wrong, Shawn.
Over the long term, I guarantee you I won't be.
Yeah, that's what people, you need to really understand is that's where the uncertainty does exist way more than what we see in the next signature in October.
Look, if you want to speculate in this, if you you literally are financially established, you come to me, Shawn, I've got a net worth of 1.5, 1.8 million, or even just 1 million. I want to take $100,000. I want to take 10% of my net worth. Maybe you tell me you make 100, 200 grand a year. You want to take 100 grand and you want to play in this market over the short term. You want to pick out some games and you think they're going to go up in value over the next 3, 6 months, 2 years, maybe. And you want to do that. You want to invest in them and you want to flip them back in the market. If you understand the risks, I'll tell you, go for it. It's all on you. But chances are this bubble could burst at any time and prices could start to fall back. I would not recommend it. But again, if you're only going in this 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, yeah, you'll probably be okay. The bubble won't pop by the time you get your money out.
Yeah,
you're gonna make a lot of money. The problem is I have people that are arguing with me. No, you don't understand, Shawn. This is the next big thing. My grandkids are going to want to own a factory sealed copy of Zelda or Super Mario Brothers. And I'm sorry, the fundamentals are not there. Why would one of your grandkids want to own a game factory sealed that they can't play for a system they never owned?
So do you hold the same kind of perspective then? We talked about Action Comics 1 there.
Sure.
Getting video games to that kind of point will take a lot of years. But what is the defense, I guess, of Action Comics 1 then, where I'm in a generation where I have no actual connection to comics. I don't think I ever really owned them growing up at all. My younger brothers are another 10 years under me. They obviously have no connection to comics. Where's the defense then for Action 1 staying relevant as a comic that people will want to own?
There isn't. But the point is, even if it becomes an established market, which I said pre-1963 comic books are almost there, that market can still die out. There's no guarantee just because it becomes established. Hummels were established in the antique market, and they died out as an established category. So it's still extremely risky. Would I put my money in Action Comics 1 right now? No. And I'm sure if this video gets enough views and it permeates to the comic book guys, they're going to go, look at that idiot. He's a consultant to trade. He wouldn't recommend an Action Comics 1. No, I would put the money, honestly, in real estate, mutual funds, and invest that way. Then if you want to take a portion of those gains out and put it in something speculative, like a comic book, a video game, a coin, whatever it is, I would tell you, okay, you can do that. I am a contrarian in a lot of these markets. I agree highly with Harry Rinker. If you heard me state his name on my channel,
absolutely,
he's a primary expert in the trade. And Harry would tell you, I'm too bullish. He doesn't even think probably that I'm bearish enough. because I at least see potential in some of these markets over the short term. And in other markets, I do see potential over the long term when we talk coins, historical documents, currency, artwork. And even those markets are being bid up with massive amounts of speculation. The one point key that I want to make in this video is that the entire antiques and collectibles trade, doesn't matter what collecting category you're in, it rests solely on speculation. Speculation is what's driving these markets at any given time. There are no fundamentals to define what an item in the antiques and collectibles trade should sell for at any given time. And I know on my channel, I talk about coins. You can go back at least 100 years in some cases. You can chart the value of that coin. With video games, we're nowhere near being able to do that. With comic books, we're nowhere near being able to do that. That does not guarantee a floor value of those items. That just allows you to see over the last 80, 90 years, if we look at this particular coin, somebody was willing to pay throughout the years this amount for it. Doesn't mean that trend's going to continue.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And that's what I think a lot of speculators lose sight of. They look at this as, well, if a Super Mario 64 sold for 1.5 million, obviously the next sale is going to be 2 million.
The trajectory is like this, or like this. There we go. Like this, right?
And so I also don't understand if that Super Mario 64 stays at 1.5 million and doesn't do anything. When you look at the cost of inflation, roughly 3% per year, if you believe the government numbers, or 4%, whatever you're calculating it at.
6, 7, 8.
Exactly. Plus the opportunity cost of putting that money in another asset class. You just lost your proverbial ass if you keep it in that investment. I mean, it's foolish for most people.
Yeah. I think a lot of, the 2020 investing became sexy. I'm sure you saw it too over the quarantine,
Robinhood,
right?
crypto. People got all this speculative stuff and they're going after stocks I'd never even heard of. I'm like, what the hell are you doing with a penny stock?
Yep.
Put it in Dow Chemical or Iron Mountain or AT&T. Put it in a blue chip.
No, that's not fun, Shawn. That's not fun. But with that, right, you say people should go into more established assets. And it's funny that a lot of the people around my age, the 20 to 30 age group, even when they go into the stock market, we're trading options, we're buying GameStop, we're doing AMC. You know what I mean? There is no fundamental slow playing anymore. That's boring. It's all about this sexy quick flip, 100% gains. We're going to YOLO. It's crazy to see. And for you to say, go into like stable ETFs or buy, blue chip stocks. How the hell do you convince someone to do that when we see video games even doubling in price every 3 months?
It's sad. I agree with you. But you guys got to get back to the fundamentals. That's what I'll say as an old man, 40 plus dude talking to.
No, for sure. Truly, it is wild though. People my age who just there is no, Rudy covers it a lot on his, where he says we've really gotten away from the norm of investing. It is insane. The expectations are insane of what people think investing means now.
Correct. They're confusing investing with speculating.
Exactly. That's exactly there is no investing anymore. So another question I want to ask you, Shawn, here. A lot of people say that they're investing or speculating in games where really you might just be a collector who has lost track of your spending. How can you really differentiate the two of those actions? Because it honestly seems like a lot of people who are just collectors like to now justify it with investing or speculating in video games.
You are correct.
How can you differentiate?
I would tell you, if you're a sophisticated investor coming into these markets, you would start with a written plan.
Yeah.
You not just spend money out of passion or emotion and then hide it from your significant other, or tell yourself, I'm investing. I mean, we're at a point in time where people are going to Walmart or Target trying to buy a Pokemon factory seal booster set box or whatever it is, even a pack, and they're calling it an investment.
Yep, that's exactly.
Modern era items were never meant to be invested upon in the antiques and collectibles trade. That's complete fantasy. That's speculation. Now, I do know there is a market for some of these items. I play in this market with some of the amiibos, items that Nintendo produces in limited quantities. They do go up in value, and they have instant validation on the secondary market, just simply because Nintendo didn't make enough of them. We call that
whether intentionally or not, they're short printed.
Correct. We call that mass-produced scarcity.
Yeah.
You can make money on that stuff. We saw that in the 1980s with Franklin Mint items and the like, where companies would take out ads and say, hey, we're only making 1,000 of this one collector's plate.
Yep.
It's going to be a limited edition, and you got to get it for your collection, or you're going to have to pay a premium for it in the secondary market. It's the same thing that's been happening for decades in the overall trade. And unfortunately, I'm going to state this, a lot of the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters have not learned from that. That's how I'm going to state this too. This also ties into the limited run games ideology.
I was going to ask you about that when we started going down this route.
And I get it. I like their products too. I love limited run games. Don't get me wrong. They make a beautiful product. I pre-order a lot of their games. But if you are seriously pre-ordering a game, keeping it factory sealed for the next 20 years, thinking it's going to be the next stadium event, you are sorely mistaken. Limited run games uses mass-produced scarcity to promote their products. Almost everybody pre-ordering that game, most of them, they're either going to order 2 of them, 1 to open, 1 to keep factory sealed, or they're going to open 3 to 4, and they're going to all keep them factory sealed. And you can make money in the short term with some of those products.
Yeah, almost a lot of them. You can just flip them immediately if you want to.
But the people that are buying them, they're keeping them factory sealed, thinking they're going to go even higher.
Yeah.
So we have this speculative mindset in this market that was never meant to be. And it's not fully limited run's fault. It's part of their fault because they know the hype that they're advertising.
They know what they're doing, but it's a great marketing plan. I don't fault them.
No, it's mainly the end consumer, though, who is trying to invest in these going, well, look, they only made 3,000 copies of this. That's about how many stadium events got released in North America. Therefore, this game is going to be the next day. It doesn't work like that.
That's what I was going to tell you is a lot of people, because I don't collect or invest or speculate in limited run. I don't like the model. It's the paradox that becomes presented where, okay, we have a limited item produced as a limited item, so it's kept sealed. It defeats the whole purpose. But people love to say, okay, well, there's only 1,000 made. Okay, well, there's only 2,000 made. And that's their defense of like, now it's going to be rare. It's going to be sought after. We only need 1,000 people to care about it, Shawn. That's not many, right? Right? What do you think about that?
Unfortunately, you need a lot more because those people have to come in and they have to be willing to pay a premium. More people have to come in willing to pay a premium, so the price goes up.
Yeah, it just seems like such a factory sealed games, despite them being, not rare, whatever you want to say, the actual inherent population counts on a lot of these games will be 200, 300, 400, even on N64 stuff. Maybe a game like Perfect Dark might crack 1,000 sealed copies
easily.
There's there you go. Right. So
on clearance, I remember you used to be able to get tons of them.
Yeah. It's always been one of the most available games, but so, okay, we're looking at 1,000 of those, and the price of Perfect Dark right now, you can still get one for $300 maybe now. I don't keep up with it too much. I stopped looking at Perfect Dark, and that's 20 years past the fact. I just don't really know what people expect out of these things where you only have 1,000, 2,000 pop, but there's already way more established factory sealed games of bigger franchises that still aren't really worth much.
Correct. It's also part FOMO. There's a lot of these people that want to play in this market, and they know they can't afford to pay $50,000, $100,000, but they can afford the $400 factory sealed game over here, where there's tons of copies, and they tell themselves, I'm investing in this market, not realizing what are the chances that $400 factory sealed game that everybody knows there's a ton of copies out there of is going to go up in value. Yeah. It's very slow, very slim.
Yeah. And it's just going to be a slow ass build where you can probably just throw it in the ETF and forget about it and not have to deal with any of the inventory. Because I don't think a lot of people realize how much goes into all of this. Like behind me, all I have is boxes of shit. You know what I mean? That's what's behind me, boxes of shit. And it's a lot of work to play in this market, to speculate. And then if you're wrong, it's a lot of hours to go through it.
Or somebody scams you on eBay on an item and you just lost. You don't have that problem with a mutual fund.
That's exactly. I do want to say, like, I do also have static investments. Like, I am not just video games. Like, I went through the whole course of setting up the mutual, setting up the ETFs, and just letting money also sit in there so I can not just deal with it, but get the passive gain. Correct. That just makes sense. And I don't think a lot of people around my age are also doing that while they're trying to flip Pokemon ETBs and booster blaster boxes of sports cards and all this shit. But that's my generation's thing.
It is. It's going to be a problem, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
still,
it's interesting.
The way to build wealth long term is the stock market and then real estate. And then third would be if you are an entrepreneur, if you have business skills, or even if you go be a doctor, a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah. If you just go the traditional route of high income earner, then
Correct.
I mean, hey, all the power to you at that point. You're making more than most of us can afford to invest in our lifetime. So,
Correct.
To anyone new, what, like, the people are seeing graded games, right? Just to kind of close out here and give your final thoughts. Tons of people are entering into graded games. Most are just buying them outright. What piece of advice would you want to give from your own experiences? I guess, do you buy graded games now in this market? That as well, I'm curious about.
Not in this market, no. I'm taking a wait and see attitude unless, two caveats here, unless I'm able to get something at a substantial discount that I know I could flip immediately into the market, or it's something that I feel has potential. And right now I'm not seeing that. Now, to be fair, full disclosure, I do have some factory sealed vintage Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and GameCube games in my own possession, because when I was going out buying this stuff, I made a lot of contacts. And during that time, I had opportunities where, like, I remember one time I got a couple of cases of Luigi's Mansion for the GameCube for like $15 a piece, factory sealed. And I was like, yeah, I'll buy them. And I just threw them in storage.
Yeah.
And there are other examples I can give you in the NES realm. Castlevania 3 was a closeout at one point that I was able to get for like $8 a game. And I took advantage of that. There were some other examples. Some of these I did sell throughout the years, but I am still sitting on several copies of this stuff. Same thing with Dreamcast games, certain PlayStation 2 games that I have factory sealed. And right now, I'm actually taking a look at the market, seeing, do I want to get this graded? Do I want to just cut my loss? You know what I mean? Cut the cord.
Yeah, not cut your losses, but finally cash out.
Yeah, pretty much. Because obviously we know factory seal copy of Luigi's Mansion, original print, not the, what was it, million bestseller, I think was.
Yeah, there's a player's choice. But
yeah, not the player's choice version. If I get that graded, you know I'm going to be able to sell that in the open market. If it's graded by WATA, 9.4, 9, that'll sell for a premium today.
You're going to do quite well on it.
Yeah, I'm looking at possibly getting this stuff out and into the market. Honestly, there isn't much drive to do that, though, believe it or not, because I myself don't want to be accused. Well, Shawn, you're not telling us what you have. You're profiting from this consistently. I'm not trying to be that guy.
And just set up a different eBay account. Get off your reserved ones, or then you're in the clear, right?
True, but I'm not trying to do that either. I do have a care about this market. I don't want to see it go to zero. And that's what I don't think people understand on my channel. I do care about these markets, even if it's a market I'm not even actively collecting in. I do want the market to maintain. I want the market to be organic. I want collectors to have the ability to come in these markets, buy these games, or buy whatever they want, and at least understand the fundamentals. Okay, is this going to be a good investment, or is this just something that I'm putting my money into because it's fun? You know, if you look at collecting categories like Pez, Lionel trains, even Hot Wheels right now, vintage toy robots, those markets have run their course.
Yeah.
The generation that propelled those markets to new heights are now, I hate to say this, they're 20, 30 years older than me. These people are going to the nursing home. These people are cashing out their collectibles. These people are going 6 feet under. These people are ending up on the urn on the mantle, if you know what I mean, if you can get with that morbid picture in your mind. So what I'm saying is, to me, if you wanted to collect Pez right now or Lionel toy trains, if that's something that you're passionate about, go for it. But just understand there's no investment potential in that market. That market's most likely not going to come back. Collectible markets are more linear. Antique markets are cyclical. That's why I think when I present this material on my channel, a lot of the people that want this to be a thing, well, Shawn, what if it becomes a popular antique? And they have a smile on their face. And I don't think people realize there's 3 types of markets that govern the overall antiques and collectibles trade. They're speculative, established, and sophisticated and or mature. When a market transitions from each one of those stages, the market changes. And that's what a lot of the people do not understand that want to make video games a thing. Just because video games are going to become an established market does not mean they are also going to be a good investment. The two are not mutually exclusive, or I should say, you know what I mean. You know where I'm going.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You can have a market that's established and not a good investment as well. It just is.
Exactly. And that's, one thing I stressed way early on my channel is if you want to even speculate, invest, do any kind of shit in this market, make sure you have an inherent passion for it, because there is the possibility of you just, losing your ass in it, or the stuff not turning out, or whatever. And then you have a lot of dead stock on your hands. And like I said, it's a lot of work to deal with stuff if you don't care about it and it's not making you money.
Correct. I know people that deal in Pokemon cards, Lego pieces, and they come to me for advice. And I'm like, dude, I'm looking at your numbers. You would make more money literally getting a job at Dunkin' Donuts or Target. And they look at me with tears in their eyes and they say, but this is something that I have a passion for. And I'm like, well, get a passion for going to work at Target. Get a passion for coffee. I don't know what to tell you, but this is not going to be viable for you over the long term. And it's great if you're in your 20s. You're in your early 20s in college, and that's what you want to do. You want to play in these markets, and you just want to make a little bit of money. Maybe you already work a part-time job, and you do this to supplement your income.
Yeah, I basically did my collecting as a part-time job. Like, my reselling and stuff was my part-time job to my near full-time job to my schooling.
There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is when you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s even, I'm seeing people, and you're telling me you run this quote unquote side business and you're making $8 to $10 an hour, that's not sustainable. You can go out in corporate America, even without a college degree, and earn more money than that.
Yeah. I
understand that you may want to do it, but it is not practical. And it is not in the year 2021. Trust me, I'm a single guy in the dating world. Okay, my last relationship was in 2019. So literally I've been single now for like 2 years.
You got caught by Corona. Cut yourself some slack,
I can tell you firsthand, women are not looking for a guy that makes $8 to $10 an hour in these markets. Okay?
Flipping Lego pieces
for the guy like me that's established, has the Mercedes, the watch, has a corporate job, also works as a consultant, maybe makes 6+ figures. That's the guy they're gravitating towards. Yeah. Not the guy who stays home and says, well, I love Pokemon cards. I love Magic the Gathering. I love video games. I love Lego. That's what I want to do. Yep. We're not going to get a top tier woman or significant other by doing that.
I was fortunate that I got with mine early enough. We're high school sweethearts. So I didn't have quite the collection and everything at the time. So, I got fortunate in that respect that she kind of had to grow with it. You know what I mean? I brought all the shit in while she was already established. Thank God. But you raise a great point that, be conscious about what you're actually doing.
There's guys like Rudy, they make hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars running a business. But if you look what they went through to get there, it's no easy task. I myself, I rotate tens of thousands of dollars of collectibles on eBay or through private transactions or the like. I have money where I can do that. But it took me many, many years to get to that point. And honestly, if you come to me and they go, Shawn, if you would have to do this all again, would you? I would be hesitant because of the hours I put in and what I had to sacrifice, what I had to give up. Honestly, I would tell my previous self, go and get a lawyer or a doctorate degree. Don't stop at business. Go for law, go for being a medical doctor, be something like that. And just come back into these markets at a later date if you want to play. But don't be very careful, guys, because a lot of the YouTubers out there, they're very hype driven. And one thing that I like about Rudy, and I give him a lot of credit, he does state on his channel, Rudy Without Investments, what he went through to get to that point.
Those are some of my favorite Rudy videos, honestly. It's just watching him talk about life because it's a lot of perspective and knowledge that is hard to get from someone.
Correct. And what's sad is I have people that watch his content and they don't get any of the critical thinking that Rudy puts out. And they come to me and they say, well, Shawn, Rudy did it. He put all of his money in Magic the Gathering. And I say to them, you need to go back and watch his videos. He was investing in corporate bonds, stocks, real estate. He has a massive traditional asset.
Lost everything in 2008.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are not easy markets to understand when you compare them to traditional assets. The fundamentals are the same. And that's what people don't realize. If you come to me and you say, Shawn, I struggle with finance, I struggle with business, I struggle with economics, but I'm going to make a fortune in Pokemon cards or Lego, you're going to have an uphill battle. I'm going to tell you, there's no such thing as a free lunch in these markets. You're going to get punished at some point.
Yeah, well, that's exactly, even just being in the video game marketplace and everything. I didn't do stocks and stuff until about 2017-ish. I got into crypto and stocks. And even then, right, of course, I went the day trading path. I went the crypto path, blah, blah, blah. You do all that stuff. But learning the emotional intelligence involved with day trading or even the crypto market of the swings of volatility, you learn so much by doing that traditional stuff where you can then translate all of that into doing video games or Magic or Pokemon, because you learn fundamental basis of supply, demand, and momentum, really.
Correct.
So to anyone who is watching, I recommend, if you don't know already how to buy stocks, go and learn how to buy stocks. Take $1,000, play with it, learn how to do stuff. You'll learn a lot about your own level of tolerance and risk and what you actually should be doing in something like video games.
Correct.
And that was, go ahead.
What's interesting too, I have a lot of older folks that watch my channel, like people that are older than me. I'm talking 50s, 60s, 70s. And what's neat is when I look at the demographics, those are the people that'll send me emails, they'll leave me comments. Shawn, you're 100% correct. I 100% agree with everything you're saying. And some of these guys, I don't think that a lot of the younger people realize, some of these guys that watch my channel are in the top tier of the antiques trade. And they went through all this and they see how these markets work. And that's why they're nodding in agreement with me. Meanwhile, the 20-year-old Timmy who wants this to be a thing, who doesn't really have the life experience or the knowledge in these markets, he's arguing with me, thinking that, no, this is going to be different. This time it's going to be different. All these fundamentals don't apply. One of the biggest criticisms I got thrown at me when I started my channel, I didn't come right out and say I have experience in reselling video games. It's not how I started my channel. When I started talking about video games, even Magic the Gathering and Pokemon, the thing that was leveled against me is, but Shawn, you don't understand how the collectibles market works.
You don't have skin in the game.
Laughing with all my credentials. I'm like, no, you need to learn the fundamentals. Once you learn the fundamentals, this will become second nature for you, and you'll see how these markets actually work over the long term. And that's what a lot of people are missing. The people that are older that watch my channel, they have no problem. They agree with what I'm putting out in most cases.
For sure. For sure. And what you say with that, right? I don't know how much you have played in the crypto market, but it's a lot like collectibles in that every crypto is going to fare different. Just because this one crashed, like, I'm not crashing. That's your coin's problem. Like, oh, that's Magic the Gathering's problem. We're not going to crash, and then they all go down together. And they go down together again. They crashed in 2014. They crashed in 2017. And obviously it was going to crash again in 2020, 2021. I mean, I learned my first cycle back in 2017 when I rode it all the way up and then rode it all the way down, which, yeah, I'm an idiot, right? Should have cashed out. But I learned a lot doing that. So, I mean, you take what you get out of it.
Correct.
But that was awesome having you on, Shawn. I'm really glad you could come on here and share a perspective. I know you are contrarian and bearish in a lot of things, but I want to expose my own viewers to that type of perspective, because it's really easy to get trapped in a vacuum, especially in a bull market. It is very, very easy to trick yourself into thinking everything is good, seek out YouTube videos that are going to further enhance it and take away even parts of conversations that maybe I say that just go towards what you already want to happen. So I appreciate you coming on, sharing a bit of a different perspective, maybe a bit of contrarian perspective, and to tell people to slow down a bit and look around.
Correct. I just hope you don't get a lot of negative thumbs down and comments on this for having me on, because I know you are really in the video game sphere. At least on my channel, people get video game content, but it's not all video game content. So I have people that even will come to me and say, well, I just don't watch your videos on video games, or I love your videos on coins. The problem with my channel is it's too big of a scope.
That's why I'm so video game centric, Shawn, because it brings in the proper traffic.
Yes.
But I'm more growth oriented, where you have your own agenda. And
I do.
that gets me watching you, right? You have your viewers coming for what they want to see from you too. So don't ever think that you should narrow your scope. I enjoy you talking about a lot of things.
I try.
You do a good job. But that's awesome. And hopefully I can have you on again in the future when there's a lot of stuff to talk about again, because I'm sure there will be.
I'd be willing.
Perfect. Have a good day, Shawn.
You too.